What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are listening to Podcasting Business School. It's the show where I teach podcasters simple strategies to help you grow your audience and turn your podcast content into new clients. And today we are talking about just that. I wrote about one of my clients in my newsletter about a month ago, and you all freaked out, and it was one of my most opened emails ever. So I'm like, I got to have Amy on the show, and we got to break this down. So we're talking about how my client, Amy Silvis, made $15,000 from a 3 podcast episode content campaign strategy. We're going to unpack what she did, what she was selling, the entire process, and see things from my coaching perspective and from her as the client. I think this turned out really, really well. I'm excited for you all to dive into this. And just in case you guys are like, hey, one-on-one coaching kind of sounds like my jam, you can do the exact same 2-week program that I did with Amy that helped produce these results. I will put my coaching options link in the episode notes, or you can go to the main website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, click on the coaching options button, and you can see the exact same 2-week program that I used with Amy. I've also got a 6-week coaching program. And I do get questions about which one is the right one to start with. Usually the 2-week program, I call it my speed to result coaching program. We focus on one thing. So like with Amy, we're focusing on building this 3-week content campaign. We knocked it out in 2 weeks, and you can see that she got a really, really great return on her investment. The 6-week program is more for people that have a little bit more of an involved set of goals. So more than one thing. So it's like, let's optimize for podcast growth and create a content campaign and or work on your newsletter strategy. So it's kind of like a multi-tiered set of goals. That's better for the 6-week consulting. We need a little bit more time to work on that. So all the info is in the episode notes. Without any further delay, let's bring on my pod pal, my client, Amy Silvis, and let's talk about how she made $15,000 with 3 podcast episodes. All right, pod pals, we are doing a case study episode with my pod pal, Amy Silvis of the Raising Capital for Real Estate Investing. I wrote about her in my newsletter, and people had questions. They're like, you need to do an episode with Amy and unpack this a little bit further for us, big guy. And she was kind enough to come on the show. So Amy, welcome to your case study episode.
Adam, this is so cool. Thank you so much. I'm really excited to walk through and hopefully help folks and all the good things.
All right. So let's talk about how we kind of made this happen. You heard me blabbing on my newsletter about my new 14-day program. It's like a 14-day sprint. I'm like, hey, we're going to focus on one single thing. You let me know. We're going to get it done and knock it out. So what did you decide that we needed to work on in that 14 days? What was the optimized goal we were trying to shoot for?
It's really looking to convert. I've got a course. So I worked with you last year to set up my course, and to set up the podcast to get everything started. And, that's a lift in and of itself. And so I reached the point where you'd helped me so much there that I'm like, oh gosh, it is really time to push on the conversions and really make sure my podcast is doing what I need it to do, which is not only help people, but convert and, get some sales. So yeah, it could not have been at a better time.
Yeah. So the common goal for a lot of my pod pals out there listening in, they're like, hey, I would like to make a little ROI and make a little cash from this thing. It's not just a hobby. I'd like to, businessify this a little bit. Okay. So I want to give you all that are listening in just 4 stats about where Amy was at, where her business and her show was at when we started the 14-day program. So number 1, she had released 32 episodes at the time. She was averaging about 97 downloads per episode, 97. The offer that she wanted to kind of optimize and sell was at the $5,000 price point. And she's in the real estate niche. I'll have her explain her niche here in a second. And she had 700 people on her email list at that time. So like, these are very real numbers. These are numbers that are very similar to a lot of my clients that I'm seeing out there, give or take a few dollars or downloads here and there. And like, the thing I want to point out is Amy was not doing millions of downloads. She didn't have a 50,000 person IG following or a giant list or any of this stuff. So Amy, can you unpack like who the ideal listener/buyer is of this $5,000 offer and how you're trying to help them with that?
Yeah. So I exist in a space that's called real estate syndication. We essentially pool money together to buy large commercial real estate assets. And a pain point of my peers in the industry is they really struggle to find people that want to invest in their deals, that want to pool capital together. And I've been able to crack the code on LinkedIn specifically on how to do that. A lot of peers run around to conferences, they spend all sorts of time and money talking to people. They don't know who they are, blah, blah, blah. So I have a course that teaches people the exact steps that I've used in real estate syndication to pool money together and raise more capital. So my peers in the industry are my target avatar.
Nice. So that's a niche, y'all. And I had somebody approach me. I think it was in the school community. They're like, Adam, I think I'm too niche. I'm like, I'm not sure there is such a thing. Like, I feel like I did an episode last year about something called the podcast monetization difficulty axis. It's like an XY axis. And the way you move to the bottom of that axis is by niching down. That instantly makes it easier to make money. There are two ways to make it easier to make money: grow a giant audience or niche down, or do both. And it's much easier to niche down than grow a giant audience. And Amy is a great example of this. So, all right. So as we headed into the 14 days together, we started to use this, develop your 3-week content campaign. And what we really tried to do was align 3 episodes that the topics of the episodes were going to call to your ideal potential client. And I wanted to align a testimonial. I'm like, hey, if you have a testimonial, let's put that in there. And then a very clear call to action. So can you talk about a little bit about the episode topics that you chose and just kind of unpack like how all that was feeling, like just being able to align that? Because I know that's not something you had done previously with your episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and part of setting up the podcast to begin with was you giving me ideas on topics to have. So we had that content calendar laid out, but I had never really done exactly as you said, kind of this sprint. So we, with your help, I say we very liberally, you helping me and me going, okay, you know what you're doing. Here we go. Decided to have that 3 sprint, as you mentioned, of talking very specifically about what to do on LinkedIn. So kind of what my target avatar is looking for, what not to do, those mistakes. And then I actually recorded a live coaching call with the permission of one of my students, doing one of the things that I do in the course and just adding a bit of a preview and more value, without getting too specific. We audited his LinkedIn profile and said, hey, the LinkedIn algorithm just changed, which it did. So it was really topical. It was really transparent and something folks could really implement by listening to the episode.
Okay. I'm glad that you brought the coaching episode up. And just to do kind of a quick recap of the 3 episodes, what I like to do is have one kind of tips-based episode, one coaching episode, and one mistakes-based episode. That's kind of my theory around this, and it's working pretty well. But we started talking about the coaching. We're voxing back and forth, and at some point, I don't remember if it was on Vox or on Zoom, Amy, but you'll remember this. You're like, Adam, what? I kind of feel like I'm nervous about giving away all the goods. Like, how much should I give away on this coaching episode? Like, will they buy if I give them, like, if I coach them as if they were paying me? So can you I hear this so much when on the coaching episode topic. So can you just kind of recall what you were thinking there? And then in a second here, we'll talk about what actually happened.
I feel this viscerally, even as you said it, because it's just, we want to sell something, I don't know, it's just kind of, what is that balance? And your feedback about just giving it away, I mean, obviously follows what you do here on the podcast too, and just really aligned with kind of how I think. It felt really freeing of, let's not worry about that. There are always going to be people that want the one-on-one coaching, that want the Amy or the Adam overview or their, specific insights that you can only get working one-on-one. So I just kind of felt my shoulders relax, not to get too hippy-dippy. But it just felt so freeing to say, okay, let's not worry about that. Let's put that aside. We're still going to get the results that we want. Let's just focus on helping people, adding value, and go from there. So it was great advice that I still think about candidly when I record episodes, even since we're done with this sprint.
Good. And what I like to tell people when they're worried about this, I'm like, I suck at selling things. Like if I was some super salesman person, you can use those super salesy, like, oh, let's talk about things high level. The high level is the free, and then the paid is like the actual implementation stuff. I can't do that. I wouldn't have content. I don't know how to do that.
Truly.
So I teach and just give you all everything. And what I told Amy was like, just give it away in your content, and then people will pay you to help them implement it correctly and specific to them. That's what the Amy factor is, and that's what they pay for. And you trusted it. You trusted the process, and we got some good results. Now, the funny thing is, I didn't tell you this.
You did.
I may have alluded to it a little bit, but I was kind of like, I didn't want to get her hopes up too much. I was like, okay, this first one, we probably won't make sales. I'm like, but it's going to plant the seed, because she was planning on doing it again in the fall. I'm like, the fall one, I have higher hopes because the audience will be a little bit bigger, and they'll have some problem awareness. You'll have the product awareness built in, and then at the end of her campaign, I didn't hear anything during the campaign, by the way, which made me nervous. I was like, what is that? It's bombing. I just know it. At the end of the campaign, I get this specific Voxer message, quote, 2 sales and a third is pending. This is awesome. I'm so excited that I can't see straight. Exclamation points. Tell me what that felt like, Amy.
Surreal. Because, you and I have a relationship. I know you know what you're doing, but I think it's normal to have kind of doubt when you try something new and get a little bit nervous when you put yourself out there. So, the results, they didn't happen right away. So it wasn't like the first week of the 3-week campaign, boom, it happened. But yeah, it felt incredible. I talk about a great ROI, one, on time and money spent, but also just knowing I get to help these students. Just, yeah, incredible results, exceeded my expectations, candidly.
Yeah, me too. I was like, can you say that again? And
Yeah.
I'm going to quote you.
Yes.
So we closed that third sale, put $15,000 in your pocket,
Yep.
at 97 downloads an episode. I was talking to a client today that has 25 million downloads. I'm like, if Amy could do this with 97, I feel like you guys should maybe attempt this. And they were pretty excited. Now I want to go back to the coaching episode,
Yeah.
because originally when we started doing coaching episodes, we were worried about, oh, this is going to hurt sales.
Mm.
Talk about where 2 of the people that bought came from.
Previous coaching episodes. Yes.
So 2 people that you've done previously coaching episodes, they did not hire you after the coaching episode, but they heard your content campaign and then bought.
Yes.
Correct?
Yep. That's exactly it.
That's what we hope for. That is the best example that I could give you all of not being afraid to coach people for free on your podcast. I get so many questioners / haters on social media. This is not how it's done. I'm like, look at my girl Amy here. Like, it's exactly how it's done. I see this happen year after year, where I do a coaching episode with somebody, or even they just hear me do a coaching episode, and then 6 months later, a year later, 18 months later, they're like, this is the time, and the stars are aligned, and we get into it now. And you'd also mentioned the other kind of advantage you had going in. You've been doing coaching episodes. You understand my 2/3 content rule with the solo episodes, coaching episodes. And you have hardly done any interviews so far, right? Just a few mixed in, or?
Yeah, I think I've done 1 or 2. Yep.
So another big misconception that podcasters have is like mainly interviews. So Amy is doing a handful, mainly coaching and solos, and the recipe is working quite well. And your SEO has been dialed in from the start. Like, again, that's when somebody hires me for a launch, that's what we focus in on, is like, how do we attract the right person with the SEO, with the, your name is dialed in, your art is dialed in, all that stuff is just working for you. So, so let's look at, now we've got the audience fired up about this, Amy. They want to do a 3-week content campaign. Any just like suggestions, pro tips, make sure you do this. This seemed to work really well. Anything off the top of your head that advice wise that you would give our listeners that want to try this similar technique?
I mean, the first one is, and maybe it sounds cliche, but if you want something different, you can't keep doing the same thing, right? So that was one of the, putting yourself out there can feel a little bit vulnerable. Hiring someone to give you instructions can feel vulnerable. You really have to trust the process. But I think that's the brilliance of going further faster with a coach and with someone who knows what they're doing, right? I could spin my wheels for years trying to figure this out. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't, or I could do a 3-week sprint with Adam and boom, get a better ROI than I could have ever imagined. So be vulnerable, nothing changes if nothing changes, and trust the process.
Nice. And with the coaching episode specifically, I'm always interested. There's always different flavors. We all have our own like kind of version of it.
Yeah.
Like I've got certain questions I like to ask and things like that. So is there a certain flow that you like to use with your coaching episodes? Because obviously they're working. Like the way that your coaching episodes worked are the way that I want them to work. Obviously it's great if they're like, hey, I want to hire you right away. And sometimes that happens and sometimes it never happens. But maybe
Yeah.
it's a listener that listens to that and they decide to hire you. But
Yeah.
is there a flow? Is there a set of questions? Is there a certain way that you like to set up your coaching episode? And also, how long are your typical coaching episodes? Give me some details.
Yeah. So you helped me, which actually helps my students when we first set up the podcast to design a listener journey, which was genius because part of my target avatar's issue is they don't know where they are in the capital raising process. They are lost. So through your instruction, we now have 4 phases of capital raising, and we describe each phase and characteristics or how to kind of diagnose where you are and what's the prescription to get to the next one. So almost every coaching episode, not 100% of the time, we talk about very first right off the bat where these folks are in the listener journey or in the capital raising journey. So listeners can see themselves in terms of where these people are and understand what their problems are, what they need to do next. I don't know if I'm doing this right or not, but it seems to work. I just have my listeners, or excuse me, my coaching students just that are on the podcast just ask questions. I mean, I have them submit a few things ahead of time, but we just spitball wherever
Right.
they want to go, however I can be useful. I'm game for the journey. So I let them know ahead of time. My goal is for this to be about them and what's most useful for them. So we just kind of free
Yeah.
flow it.
I love it. Well, I think that you're free flowing it, but you're putting some guardrails on there with that ideal listener journey of like helping them. I mean, that's the huge win. And for you guys that have never listened to one of my ideal listener journey episodes, it's like I've got one called the Podcasting Success Timeline. It's defining. A lot of people confuse it with a funnel or like a client journey, and that's not what we're talking about. We're looking at who is your ideal listener for your podcast and what transformation are they looking to go through, and then we
Yep.
map that out. So for Amy's space, it's super niche. It could be super expensive. If you make a mistake in real estate, capital raising, and investing, it is not a $5 mistake. Let me tell you that. It could be a soul crusher. So figuring out where you're at, why you're there, and the definitive next steps, the prescription from Amy to go to the next phase and move forward, that adds amazing clarity. So just the fact that you've put out an episode about your journey and all that, and you can reference that. Do you ever have people listen to that episode prior to doing a coaching episode, or do you mainly just unpack it right there with them?
So part of my Calendly booking is, I include that episode and I also give kind of a text version of it. So folks, but very often my coaching episodes, these people have been following the podcast. I mean, it's a bit of a cult following. I know it's not that big of a download listenership, but these folks know exactly where they are. They often come already knowing and kind of understanding what this all looks like. So I prompted just, as a default, just in case, but very often they already know.
Super smart. Like I really like the idea of doing that leading up to a coaching episode. I also like the idea of adding that to like your Calendly sign up flow to a discovery call. Like, hey, if you've never listened
Yeah.
to my show, listen to this. Like that's going to really prep them, add clarity, give them a big win, develop a big dose of expert positioning for you, and we're off and running. Okay. You're going to do this again here in the fall. We're going to run another content campaign. Our goal that we kind of worked on is like, let's expand the audience a little bit. So obviously the show keeps growing and things like that, but you've been working on your newsletter. So, I mean, let's talk about that just a little bit. Like
Yeah.
obviously that's why we don't run consistent like content campaign after content campaign. You got to have a little bit of breathing room in between. That's a
Yes.
part of the strategy again, but we kind of reload, add a little bit more people to the funnel, and then we expose that new audience, that new larger audience to the next content campaign, which hopefully has even equal or better results. So like what's the prep strategy right now as far as growing, getting a newsletter together? What are we excited about with all that?
I think the newsletter is such a great next step because candidly, my ideas before you and I talked about newsletter was just an email kind of reminder of what podcast episode is out there, which is, I don't know, a wet blanket at best, right?
It's
So having,
promotion. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, oh gosh, another promotion. We all get enough there. So understanding your strategies and your structure, again, not having to reinvent the wheel myself, but success leaves clues. So following what you taught, of how to do the newsletter, how to add value, get more engagement, and maybe even thinking about creating a community, something along those lines, all is really, really exciting. And you made it easy to implement.
Yeah, she smiled at me when she talked about the community. And my clients will all laugh because everybody I'm working with one on one right now, I'm like, this Skool community thing is ripping and it's really exciting. And I remember I sent Amy an episode. I'm like, these people are doing real estate and like it's like real estate capital raising, and it's in a different way.
Yeah,
And they're making like $40,000 a month with the Skool community. And I was like, you got to listen to this. So I'm planting that Skool community seed
I
in
love it.
all my clients. I'm like, I love just going, hey, you could do this and make $1 million a year. How about that?
Done.
And a done deal. So, okay, Amy, I'm so proud of you. Like
Oh,
you're such a good person. You're helping people do
uh-uh.
cool things and you're an awesome content creator. So I'm really proud of the results and I'm really proud of being able to do this together. Shout out your show. Like if people want to come check out your show, uh, where do they go? Website, hang out on LinkedIn, like give them the stuff.
Thank you, Adam. Well, but before I go into that, just thank you again for being a great coach. You make it really fun, which is really important. Obviously, you know what you're doing. The results speak for themselves. So very grateful that Jerome introduced us. We crossed paths, and shout out to Jerome Myers.
Shout
Uh,
out.
yeah, my podcast is, as you mentioned, Raising Capital for Real Estate Investing. So you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, even started a little bit on YouTube. But yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I've got kind of a weird spelling of a last name, but hopefully it's in the show notes or the title. So you can find me, Amy Silvis. I'm really active over there. And yeah, if you're interested in hearing my experience with Adam or want to reach out or anything like that, I'm always happy to talk about how great this has been.
Awesome. Amy, I appreciate you coming on the show for this case study episode.
Thank you.
All right, Pod Pals, there you have it. Amy Silva's case study episode. Was that inspiring or what? Like the fact that she's doing less than 100 downloads an episode, made that kind of money. That got me fired up because I know that so many of you kind of feel down about your download numbers and like, oh man, it's going to take me until 500 downloads an episode or 1,000 plus downloads or 10,000 downloads an episode before I can make any real meaningful income. And I feel like this is a great example of you can earn meaningful income with a small-ish podcast audience, and we're going to keep growing it. You're going to get even better results. So if you need a little help with any of that, with that growth, with that optimization, with your monetization or content strategy, remember you can head on over to the main website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, or use the link in the show notes. Check out my coaching options. And Pod Pals, with that, I'm going to send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We'll see you on the next episode.